The jury came back with a verdict in the Letecia Stout trial, and she was immediately sentenced. And during that sentencing, everyone, including the judge, got a chance to say what's been on their minds. And let me tell you what, they saw right through her stuff. And we're going to talk about all that in today's video. Hello Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa, which is still behind me, with our mascot Mr. Roscoe P. Coltrane, and my name is Paul. Now, as I said in my little intro there, we're going to be talking about the verdict. Now, at this point, you probably already know, guilty. So yes, we were very excited about that. And what we're going to talk about today is the verdict, but also some of the impact statements, as well as what the judge had to say to Letecia. Now, again, this is something that I implore you to watch the entire thing. I have literally just picked out a few pieces of it that I'll show the video, the clips of, to use as talking points. It was very impactful. It was very emotional. And so I do urge you to watch the whole thing, because it was excellent job done by both survivors of Letecia, and let's call it what it is, survivors of her, Landon, Al, other people. But as well as the judge. I was very impressed with this judge. So anyways, if you're new to the channel, how it's going to work is we're getting ready to put up a clip here. We'll use that as a talking point, and then just, drop your own comments down in the comment section below. Again, I ain't no doctor, I ain't no lawyer. These are all my opinions. This is for entertainment purposes only. I urge you to do your own research, come up with your own conclusions, and talk about them down in the comment section. So on that note, let's watch that first clip.
And unfortunately, you left this world fighting. Your Honor, she fought against someone that he loved and trusted. Someone that myself and Albert both trusted and loved. Someone who can never understand what it means to love or trust anyone but herself.
I mean, amazing, amazing words coming from Gannon's mother, Landon. Now, in this, you heard her say, which was surprising to me to hear, but also, refreshing, because it made the relationships that much more like, the realization of how it was, of, we loved her, Gannon loved her, but also for her to say those words of she would never understand loving anyone else besides herself, because again, it's so true.
She searched so hard for love, when all along she had it, but she took it for granted. I didn't hold anger against you then. I still kept my heart open to her. You had so much love from Lena and Gannon, from Harley, her own daughter, that you willingly subjected to the chance of serving time for her crimes. Such an indicator of her inability to love anyone herself. You had support, appreciation.
I mean, my God. I mean, that's the thing, when you watch this, she really did have it all, right? She had a family, a husband, but it was never going to be enough for her. The fact that Landon called that out about the Harley situation, I was like, oh, whoa. Landon and nobody held back in this, but they did it in such an eloquent way. I absolutely admire their strength and courage.
I can't say that she ruined my life, because that would be some form of sick victory for her.
I love that she said that, because it's true, right? Letecia would enjoy that in her sick, twisted way.
He is a hero. She even tried to steal that away. A cape? Huh? The one image of Gannon that was created for the world. After it went national. TV begging for the return of my son, my hero. How dare her? How truly sick and cruel is she? You stole so much from this world. Gannon's cousins, aunts, uncles, sisters, new siblings, grandparents, and friends are missing a huge portion of their lives without Gannon.
And the impact of these crimes goes so far, and they made such a point to bring that up throughout this case, as well as these sentencing and impact statements, as well as from the judge. Also, I never made that connection the way that Landon just put it together. And another thing that Landon says, I'm not sure if I have the clip in here or not, which is, there's things that they know, me and her and Al, that nobody else would get who's not in there, like that kind of close-knit circle of Letecia's been taking stabs at us throughout this whole thing of stuff that really only we would know. And so when she brought this whole thing about the K-pop, I was like, oh my God, that makes total sense, right? I mean, the depravity of Letecia was exposed even further during the sentencing aspect of the trial.
You wanted to leave us with that, knowing it would torture us. But you underestimated me. I am Landon, Gannon's mom, and that will never change.
Amen, girl. Go on. Yell it from the stands. I love, again, I'll just say it 100 times, how strong, how confident, how courageous she, as well as others, were to get up there and speak their truth.
As I stated in my testimony on the stand, Gannon was born severely premature and barely filled my two hands the first time I held him. At the end of his life, after his body was cremated into a pile of ashes, he was ultimately no bigger than the first time I held him.
I mean, my God. Talk about just ripping your heart from your chest and just throwing it on the ground. I mean, one thing that I thought was very impactful with, and this is, Al, the father, there was his new wife speaking and their attorney, him getting up there and saying things like this, and he would make mention of the wounds done to Gannon and things like that, really bringing home the gravity of what that monster did to him, right? But opening up with a statement like this, and this is kind of near the beginning of his impact statements, very powerful, and just the imagery is heartbreaking.
I'm not seeking any restitution, Your Honor. For the $1.50 a month I receive from the defendant, Tisha, would just keep me connected to her for the rest of my life, and I don't want that. So absolutely no restitution, Your Honor.
I love this. Cut off her supply, her narc supply, right? Which is him. It's feeding off this. Because the frustrating thing about this is people like Letecia, they get off on this kind of attention. Even though this is horrendous, she gets off on this in a way. So she's having to pay restitution, all this, knowing that is her face is popping up in his life every month and all that type of stuff. Oh, she loved every second of it.
The murderer of which I speak was not always such. When I met Tisha, she was beautiful, extremely intelligent, as many have testified to, and a seemingly successful woman. A far cry from the nappy-headed, murderous, narcissistic, and arrogantly flippant human being that sits in our midst today.
Okay, now this part right here. Y'all, I was sitting here when we watched this live on my podcast channel today, we were all like, what did he just say? And it's so true, though. And I personally think that she has made herself with, because it looks like she's just unshowered, right? And unkempt and all this kind of stuff. And I think she's done that intentionally to try and ham up this whole mental illness, insanity plea, all that kind of stuff. But when he just started reading her for filth, I was like, whoa, here we go.
I never in my wildest dreams would have ever thought you'd be in danger, buddy, or I wouldn't have not left you. At home with what turned out to be your murderer and the last person to ever see you on this earth.
I mean, my God. And that's something, he's going to have that the rest of his life, right? I can't imagine what that would be like. Because as they've said here, Landon said it, he said it, they trusted her. You don't think someone's going to do this to your child, right? And I'm sure she presented a certain facade to them. I am sure she was seething behind the scenes of, I'm going to be stuck with him and and I have to watch his kids and I have to do this and I have to do that. It wasn't an option to just say, you know what, I don't like this. We need to separate. I'm going to go do my own thing. For whatever reason, she felt this need, this desire to stay there and let things go until whatever happened that day that made her just take everything out on poor little Gannon.
It was said both in the opening statement and in the closing. Somehow Gannon has been compared to a demon. And I understand the process. I do. But if they want to take the case up of Gannon being a demon, I will line people up from Alaska to Denver to Colorado Springs, all the way to South Carolina to testify against them. Gannon was nobody's demon. I don't care how much anyone was abused or anything. He was not anyone's demon.
Amen, brother. That part never sat right with me. And it said it doesn't set right for multiple reasons because, number one, it's just a terrible thing to say about Gannon. But also because everybody saw through the DID dissociative thing, which is what they're saying. Oh, she was triggered and she thought that it was a demon in a cape or something. And it's like, no, she's lying through her teeth. Really, there only seems to be one person that went along with her story, Dr. Lewis. And to sit up there and get up there and call this 11-boy compare him to a demon, I'm like, are you kidding me? It's called Take the Temperature.
Me and Landon already had a conversation about this, and I owe her an apology, as well as she already gave me one, that we allowed Tisha to manipulate us into some of the pain and disagreements that we had between one another. And Landon, I'm sorry.
I mean, here's the thing. This is what we said this whole time. Imagine the drama that Letecia caused all throughout that. If somebody made a comparison in the comment sections one time of, can you imagine what would happen if the simple question in the morning was asked, who left the milk out? I mean, this is the way that I'm like, how did this woman function? She is so toxic. I can't imagine her in any basic human interaction.
But I will say this. Tisha was not the glue to keep everything together. She was not the answer. And this is not a jab, Landon, okay? But Lena still lives with me. Tisha, you were not the answer.
I love that. As much as she was trying to make it sound like she was Mother damn Teresa, right? I love that he took that away from her.
Now, Your Honor, if I have any influence on the final sentence for Tisha, first I ask to be stripped of my last name immediately. It's nauseating and infuriating to hear her called Miss Stout this past 3 years.
That was so impactful because she would never change her last name. She would never do that. And so I'll be curious to see if he really does change his last name because, I mean, yeah, it's like you're going to always associate that with her, right?
And that all through her sleep, she dreams of all the fun they had at Disney and other places we went throughout our time together. And that every morning as she is about to wake, the end of her dream, the last words Gannon spoke or screamed or cried, Tisha, stop. You're hurting me. Why, Tisha? Daddy, help me. I want my mommy. Why couldn't you let her just be a mama's boy? That's all he wanted to be. He just loved his mama.
Wow, that part. Oh my God. Listening to him do that, I mean, it gives me goosebumps all over, y'all. I mean, God knows what that poor little boy went through. And just seeing this broken man up there, I mean, my God. Again, my heart goes out to him and Landon and everyone else who had the courage to get up there and speak their truth in this way. So vulnerable of them to get up there and do this. And it's just amazing to me.
The pain Mr. Stout and Ms. Bullard have experienced as a result of the defendant's actions.
Now, we're going to be now looking at the actual sentencing. The judge is speaking as the judge was, saying, I can't imagine the pain that she's caused, right? I mean, none of us could. So let's get into what he had to say.
You betrayed your daughter, Harley Hunt. I cannot imagine the emotional impact that you have had on her due to your selfish and calculated actions. This is a young woman that trusted you to put her interests above yours. This is a young woman who believed in you and believed you were innocent of this crime right up until the time that you pled not guilty by reason of insanity. And she still loves you.
Again, very powerful. Multiple people have gotten up here and brought Harley's name up here in the betrayal of Letecia to her own blood, right? But Letecia has no limits with that. And people like her don't. It's just whatever is convenient and, right in front of them, whatever they need, and no one is immune to that, not even their own children.
There is no evidence that she had anything to do with the murder or your cover-up of it. But some people still think that she is somehow involved.
Now, this is in reference to people thinking that her daughter Harley had something to do with it. And again, he's just kind of, bringing it home and other people who got up there and spoke, Al and whatnot, they did this too, of the damage that Letecia caused, not only putting other people in harm's way, whether it be legally or physically, but also just, the rumor mill and all that kind of stuff going. But again, Letecia has no boundaries that she will not cross.
At some point, you even claimed this 8-year-old girl helped you move her brother's body from the basement to the back of your car. That's just simply not true. As she gets older, Lena is going to want to know more, and she's going to want to know if there was something that she could have done to prevent this.
I love that he called that out. He's like, this just isn't true, because so much of what she said isn't true. I love that he did that, and that he brought home that one day she's going to want to know when she grows up, like, what happened, what went on. And you know how the internet is. You hear people talk about that. I mean, Harley just figured out how her dad really died off the internet, right? And so that's the kind of things, the selfishness that this causes, but especially the links that Letecia went through and the multitude of lies. This is going to be so just, oh my God, what? For years to come, for a lifetime to come for many of these people.
Your attempt to raise the claim that you did this because of your adverse childhood is also a betrayal of people that have mental health issues. It is no secret that there is a large part of our population that has mental health issues. It's also no secret that our country and our health system could do a much better job addressing mental health issues than it does. However, the number of people with mental health issues who become violent is small, and the number who become murderers is smaller still.
I absolutely love that he brought up this dynamic, because again, she has absolutely smeared mental health and mental illness. These are communities that already have, a lot going on, right? And she has tried to use this to get out of trouble. And it's not believable, and I'm so glad that the judge called her out for this, as well as that he clearly saw through all her BS from the word go.
I have had cases where the defendant's mental condition caused the defendant to act out in a certain fashion. But even in those cases, I have never seen conduct like this.
And again, he's calling this out. You know what? This is an act of evil. This is not mental health. This is not, another personality did it. This is evil in its purest form.
I understand the claim of dissociative identity disorder. I have seen something resembling that, and I have seen defendants with schizophrenic disorders. I can understand those. What I have seen is that the mental condition causes the person to act a certain way, and when they realize what they did, they are astonished by what happened, or they have no memory of what happened. Your claim is that it was another personality that murdered Gannon, but there is no time during the minutes, hours, and days following the murder where Letecia came out and wondered, gee, why am I carrying a body around in my luggage?
Amen, brother. Sing it from the rafters. This is so true. All this claims up here, I would have loved to have known if Dr. Lewis was in the damn audience and what she had to say about this. Because this is the thing, there was just none of these signs, and it was so clear, which made it such another cheap shot that they got Dr. Lewis to come in and give that shoddy, testimony, right? There was no signs of this here, and they act almost as if the judge it's his first day, right? I love that he was like, look, I've seen multitudes of this, hello, I kind of do this for a living. I've seen A, B, and C, and guess what? This is next level. This is next level.
You knew what you were doing. You made a number of clear and conscious decisions to cover or disguise what you had done.
Again, we've been saying this from the get-go. So much evidence of her trying to hide and cover and lie and do all this, that the fact that they could even find one person, meaning the defense, to get up there and try and make excuses for that is shocking.
An 11-year-old boy on the verge of being a teenager. Those of us who have lived through people or kids that were teenagers, we know how that is. It is not hard to imagine Gannon saying something, "You're not my mom. I want my mom. I want my dad." And that would be enough to make you really angry.
He's got her number. He has looked at the evidence. He has heard it. He has sat in this trial, and he knows not exactly what went down, but these scenarios that he's outlining are exactly the way that I think that this went down.
It's clear that you hated and were jealous of Landon Bullard. You saw yourself as a better mother than she was. It's clear from the evidence that you had some resentment from being left with Mr. Stout children. It's clear you had some resentment toward Mr. Stout because he traveled as part of his job. Some of that manifested as early as Al's assignment in Alaska when you made allegations against the people in his unit.
Again, calling her out. I mean, all this evidence speaks to this, but finally hearing the judge say it, like, you know, the authoritative, the authority in the courtroom, you know what I mean? And he's calling this out and him confirming that he has seen all and thought all the same things that we've been talking about and seeing this whole trial. It was so satisfying.
I can imagine that you saw your whole future consisting of taking care of Mr. Stout's children while he was off doing his thing, and that's not the future that you wanted.
Again, he knows her like the back of his hand, apparently. And I think this is exactly what happened. I think this kept going and kept going. And she tried running here and doing this and causing drama and blah, 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 blah. And it was like, this is it. This is my life. And I think Gannon became the figurehead for it.
I'm also reminded of the look you had on your face when you slipped your handcuffs while being transported back to Colorado and attacked Deputy James. I shudder to think that that was probably the last thing that Gannon saw before he died.
And this is the thing when you get into video evidence and whatnot in these crimes, and especially this. I mean, just like he said, some of this video evidence that we saw, it's like, oh my God, this is what he was dealing with. Because that's exactly probably what happened. The Letecia that we saw in that van, when she tried to break out and do all that stuff, that was Letecia that they were dealing with behind closed doors. That is scary. Imagine that being the person who is in charge of you as your adult. That is absolutely terrifying.
I can, however, say without hesitation that the facts in this case are the most horrific I have ever seen.
I mean, and they are. I mean, this is one of those cases, and we talked about this in the live chat today, where there's something particular about this case that literally, it just hits different. I don't know any other way to say it. The anger that it causes, the frustration that it causes, the heartbreak that it causes, it is very specific because it is so absolutely horrific.
That I can impose under Colorado law. As such, with respect to the charge of first-degree murder after deliberation, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. With respect to the charge of murder in the first degree of a child under 12 by a person in a position of trust, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. Those two sentences will merge. If you have questions about that, you can ask your attorneys. With respect to the charge of tampering with a deceased human body, I'm also going to sentence you to 12 years, followed by a 3-year period of parole. That sentence is to be consecutive to the life sentences that I've already imposed. With respect to tampering with physical evidence, I'm going to impose an 18-month sentence. That sentence is also consecutive to the sentences for the murder charges that I have imposed. I also understand, with the consent of the prosecution, and I'm assuming no objection from the defense, that I will dismiss all the charges in 20 CR 3170, close that out, subject to restitution, give the people 49 days for restitution, 14 days for response, and if there's an issue, we will set it within 90 days from. I think that resolves all outstanding matters.
I love that he stacked them like that. Now, we know that his hands are basically tied. He gave her the best sentence, the longest, the worst, whatever you want to call it, that he can for Colorado. And I think that's appropriate. And I hope that Al changes his last name, and I hope that he doesn't take the restitution as $1.50 or whatever he said it was. Now, she did request. The only thing she had to say to all this was she requested to be put into a certain prison. And I was like, really? Now, mind you, I didn't want her to speak. And after these people got up there and the victim impact and the judge and all that, there was nothing to say, okay? There was nothing to say. But the narcissistic, selfish side of her, I was like, oh, that's going to want to speak up, right? I pray that they don't ever have to deal with her again. That's why I'm like, I hope he changes his last name, the restitution thing, all that, because she will get pleasure out of that. She gets pleasure out of this, of knowing that in her way she got back or whatever, right? I do not think that she is going to fare well wherever she's going. I can't imagine a crime like this you would ever do well in any kind of general population. I think that the judge was amazing in this. I absolutely loved the way he spoke at the end. I love the things that he had to say. And again, the bravery of Landon and Al and other people that got up there and spoke, the grandparents, was absolutely amazing and heartwarming. And to finally hear these words about Gannon, it brought it all home. It was justice that was long overdue, and I do believe that Gannon was screaming from the other side, from his grave, to help bring that justice. Just like they said, throughout this trial, of he was yelling at us through his autopsy, through this, through that, of bring justice home, and that was done today. I'm very proud of this jury. They, in my opinion, came back pretty swiftly and quickly, even though we had to wait the weekend. I mean, that was normal. So yeah, there's that. Again, I urge you to watch the whole thing because I just picked out a few pieces here and there, but it's extremely impactful and it's extremely emotional and moving. And so let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you agree with the sentence? Did you have a particular part of the impact statements that stood out to you the most? I'd like to know. So anyways, thank you for watching this trial with me and following it. We're going to continue following other ones and whatnot, so stay tuned. And that's it. So next time, until we meet around the old computer and the Coke can and the phone, I'll see y'all soon.